go to the Philadelphia Eagles, Colin. Jalen Hurts was spectacular against the Raiders in a 31-0 romp. 214 total yards, 3 touchdowns. But interestingly, we found a good quote from Nakobe Dean, the great linebacker on the Eagles. He said this about Jalen Hurts: I wouldn't want another quarterback. You see a guy that takes so much criticism in every aspect, but comes in with the same resolve. To me, he can't do no wrong in my eyes. And listen, that's a very good point, that this is a Super Bowl MVP, couple bad games. Oh, he's garbage. Let's trade him. Should we bench him? And then he bounces back against the Raiders. It's good to hear someone in that locker room sticking up for QB1.
It is hard. I almost look at Raider games as they don't count. I don't know what to do. I mean, it is... Cincinnati yesterday looked like they almost quit. Ravens players saying first series of the game like they weren't ready to play. Listen, it's a nice win. You take it. They're easily the most talented team in the division, and you just get ready for January.
Well, we could take some positives. Hurts was running more than he had for the last 8 weeks. I think he had 39 yards on the ground.
Yep.
Like to see that. Now it's against the zone. The Raiders play a terrible zone defense. So, he's able to find his spots. So overall, I thought it was a great win for the Eagles. The Dallas loss coupled with the Eagles win. Eagles are going to the playoffs. They're probably going to get the 3 seed, right?
Yeah.
Tampa or Carolina will get the 4. So I like the Eagles as long as the matchup. Here we go. I would probably Eagles against that Sam Darnold in Philly. I'm sorry, I would take the Eagles in that game, Colin. Against the Niners defense is not great. The Titans kind of moved the ball.
Oh, they did.
And I think the Packers, I don't want to talk. I'm sad about the Packers. I think they're done. I don't think they can make a legit run. So I think the Eagles are back to being a contender in the NFC. It's clearly the Rams, right?
Yeah, and I think we're going to see those Seahawks and the Rams on Thursday. You're going to see, to me, the 2 deepest rosters outside of Philadelphia in the NFC. So I really do believe this. I think the top of the NFC for the first time in 5 years is better than the top of the AFC.
All right. Okay. First, to address a technical point. It's generally more straightforward for a quarterback to scramble and utilize his mobility against man coverage, because defenders often have their backs turned, focused on receivers. So, I'm not entirely certain what the commentary there was about. Against zone coverage, it becomes somewhat more challenging because defenders are more frequently facing the quarterback, positioned to react to him. But that's somewhat tangential to the core discussion. There appears to be significant confusion among many regarding what constitutes a meaningful takeaway from a victory over an inferior opponent. I believe I provided an exceptionally clear breakdown when the Eagles defeated the Raiders recently, if I may say so myself. I don't claim this from a place of believing all my analyses are incredible, brilliant, or flawlessly logical. Sometimes I articulate points that are strong. Other times my thoughts can be jumbled, peculiar, or nonsensical. I'm human. However, the fundamental concept seems to be a genuine struggle for people, a real point of difficulty. The Eagles had been performing poorly. Jalen Hurts was not meeting expectations. The aerial attack was ineffective. The ground game was subpar. The team was not executing. The play calling was questionable. Hurts wasn't using his legs. Receivers weren't gaining separation. The scheme, the play design, everything seemed intrinsically problematic and flawed. Facing the Raiders, the significance isn't found in the bare statistical outcome of a win. If they had rushed for 210 yards while A.J. Brown scarcely touched the football, and Hurts had 3 quarterback push touchdowns, and they forced 4 turnovers against Kenny Pickett, then celebrating that victory or suggesting there were substantial positives to extract would be fundamentally mistaken and incorrect. A prime illustration of this involves the Cowboys. Grover, I'm speaking to you directly here as a major Cowboys supporter, who said, "You celebrate when the Eagles win, but not when the Cowboys defeat the Raiders." The context was the Cowboys celebrating their defensive performance halting Geno Smith and the Raiders. That's an erroneous interpretation. If the Eagles' defense had been terrible and truly floundering, and then they shut down the Raiders, prompting claims of "the defense is back," that would be absurd. That's delusional. The Eagles' offense was the unit struggling, and obviously, so were the Raiders, particularly offensively. The Cowboys performed well defensively against both those teams. When commentary suggested, "Observe the adjustment they made, this defense is elite now," my response was, "You accomplished it against the Raiders and against an Eagles offense that has been visibly inconsistent." That reveals very little. However, the Eagles' offense itself, which had been inconsistent, demonstrated something different. Again, listen to Greg Olson's analysis throughout that entire contest. The specific play calling, the throws targeting the intermediate areas, Hurts utilizing his mobility. There was a fundamentally altered methodology. A different game plan and a distinct tier of execution were present. That is the meaningful takeaway. That is what holds weight. If Saquon Barkley and the offensive line had simply bullied their way to victory, I'd be inclined to dismiss the game's significance. Hurts was also nearly flawless. And again, it wasn't a case of him simply launching deep passes for 70-yard touchdowns to A.J. Brown, prompting declarations of, "We're back." That wasn't the narrative. Even in the game against the Minnesota Vikings, where numerous big plays occurred off-script, there were more substantial takeaways from this Raiders game than from Hurts's actual perfect passer rating performances. It was the incorporation of Dallas Goedert, the inventive play calling, Hurts employing his legs intelligently and strategically, the deployment of Tank Bigsby, etc. Those are the substantive observations. That's what renders this a more intriguing and revealing victory than, perhaps, a more consequential win against the Green Bay Packers or the New York Giants earlier, or even the Minnesota Vikings, as I mentioned previously, due to their specific circumstances within the season, their performance trends, and the particular issues they were confronting. We must not lose sight of the nuance in these discussions. If nuance is absent, then none of this analysis matters. If you desire to comprehend what analysis looks like devoid of nuance, this is the result. I'll quickly run through these teams that just played. This is the zero nuance approach. The Rams are the NFL's premier team, unbeatable. They're 11-3, the top seed. Matthew Stafford, Devonta, Puka, Kyron, unstoppable against Detroit. Then, wait, the Bears, Caleb Williams. They're the best, incredible. They defeated the elite Cleveland Browns defense. Shedeur Sanders was on a hot streak, performing brilliantly, and the Bears defense said, "Not today." Then, the Eagles. They demolished the Raiders. They're amazing. No, they're terrible. They're amazing. They're terrible. Super Bowl bound. Bench everyone. MVP, Super Bowl. Then, the Buccaneers. Fire the entire staff. Todd Bowles is destroying that team. They're not good. They're the 4 seed but will lose to Carolina. Just not good. Then, the Seattle Seahawks. You barely defeated an aged Phillip Rivers. That's pathetic. A disgrace. Needing a 57-yard field goal to beat Rivers at home is sad. Then, the 49ers. Brock Purdy is healthy and back. He was in the Super Bowl for a reason. Kyle Shanahan, Coach of the Year. Still contending for the division. An incredible team. Then, the Green Bay Packers. It's over. Micah's injury ends the season. Done. Jordan Love threw 2 interceptions. Told you he's not the guy. Overpaid, not the guy. Then, the Detroit Lions. Your season is finished. Awful defense. Sure, the offense was decent, but the Rams have a weak secondary. You're not good enough. You miss Ben Johnson, and now he's winning the division elsewhere. Not good. And the Carolina Panthers, not worth discussing. It is permissible to incorporate nuance. It is acceptable to have a layered conversation. When I discussed the Chicago Bears in a previous video, analyzing their win over Cleveland, which was a solid victory, and I admired Caleb's performance, I subsequently noted that, interestingly, given how the Bears are currently playing, there aren't overwhelming takeaways from simply beating the Browns. Yes, Cleveland has a great defense, but it's not an unconquerable force, as evidenced by Cam Ward and the Titans putting up points and defeating them. Therefore, from the Bears' current standpoint, a game like that only provides limited information. It only carries so much weight because Chicago already possesses more impressive, tougher, grittier victories, and their overall production speaks for itself. I then contrasted this with the Philadelphia Eagles, who had been struggling, where a performance like theirs against the Raiders could carry substantially more significance. It's simply fascinating to me how people grapple with these concepts. If you cannot recognize that the Eagles had lost 3 consecutive games and were coming off an atrocious offensive display against the Chargers, and then proceeded to execute almost flawlessly, regardless of the opponent, if you cannot comprehend that stark contrast, then again, I'm uncertain what to tell you. When individuals were earnestly advocating for Jalen Hurts to be benched, and then he delivers what was essentially a perfect game, If Dallas Goedert catches that touchdown, it's a perfect passer rating game. He would have had 2 such games. And if you cannot perceive the difference, especially based on the actual strategic game plan, which also allows you to credit coaching and player execution, I truly don't know what to tell you. Conversely, using this single game as a reference point to declare, the Eagles are back, the most feared team in the NFL, the top contender, any doubter is a clown, is also not the correct take. But, to reference the Dallas Cowboys again, and I'll conclude here, the Cowboys defeated the Raiders. Okay, they defeated the Eagles, who had been offensively challenged all season long. All season. They then defeated the Chiefs, a playoff-caliber team. Following this, the Cowboys were anointed the most dangerous team in the NFL, predicted to leapfrog Philadelphia, win the division, and emerge from the NFC. Subsequently, they couldn't even defeat J.J. McCarthy and the Minnesota Vikings. Do you understand? They couldn't even beat the Detroit Lions. They then profoundly struggled to accomplish anything in the most critical competitive moments. The Cowboys genuinely had an opportunity to secure a playoff berth. The schedule was favorable, the Eagles were not at their best, and they could not capitalize. Do you see? That specific take ended up aging perfectly. The same principle applied to the Kansas City Chiefs, when I stated that beating the Raiders or the Commanders revealed little about them, because once healthy, I expected them to accomplish those feats. We could acknowledge they weren't playing well before, but they were an incomplete team at that juncture. I needed to see their performance against the Buffalo Bills, against superior defenses, etc. What transpired? They lost those games. Therefore, those very analyses that people questioned, accusing me of bias, ridiculousness, or unfairness, ended up aging perfectly. They could not have aged any better. Those precise takes hold validity because of nuance. The situation is not binary. If circumstances were slightly reversed for the Eagles, if they had been playing high-quality football, defeating the Bears, Chargers, and Cowboys, I would not be celebrating a win over the Raiders. I'd say, you beat the Raiders. Congratulations. Everyone does. It's neat Jalen nearly had a perfect rating, but what truly matters is your performance against the Rams, Seahawks, etc. That would be the take, and it would be accurate, appropriate, and logical. Even my analysis of Jalen Hurts and the Minnesota Vikings game aged perfectly, as I stated. That was an outstanding individual performance by Hurts, but the big plays and moments didn't primarily stem from coaching and scheme, which remains a concern. That proved correct. Week 1 against Dallas, where Hurts also played excellently and the offense beat the Cowboys, I noted it was a great win, but the major plays weren't largely schemed or caused by coaching, which concerned me. That also aged perfectly. So, it appears numerous points I've articulated are aging rather well. I don't know what to tell you. Simply because you dislike a conclusion does not invalidate it. It doesn't automatically make me right, but it doesn't mean the underlying logic is flawed. You can absolutely disagree with the conclusion. I welcome that. You cannot, however, rationally disagree with the logical framework itself. If you do, there's a strong likelihood you are somewhat confused. I've stated my perspective and I stand by it. Those are simply my reflections. I would genuinely appreciate hearing yours. Also, a final observation before concluding. There was celebration over a win against the Denver Broncos, praising a perfect game, yet when the Eagles win, there's reluctance to acknowledge it. For the record, that Broncos team had been performing exceptionally well. But those are my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What are everyone's thoughts regarding the Denver Broncos, the Philadelphia Eagles, and Jalen Hurts leading a 31-0 victory over the Las Vegas Raiders? Let me know your perspectives in the comments below. I read every single comment. So whether you agree with me or disagree with me, let's engage in some discussions, have some spirited debates, but ultimately, let's simply enjoy the discourse. Please consider subscribing. We are building an incredible community here and would absolutely adore having you participate. I aim to construct something we all feel genuinely connected to, something we're truly excited to be part of. I believe we are making significant progress toward that goal. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it genuinely assists with visibility and the platform's algorithm. Thank you so very much. I will see you all next time.